Good evening, everyone. Thanks, Jake. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Wednesday, June 3rd, Board of Douglas County Commissioners 5:30 business meeting. For those of you who are in person with us, there are paper copies of our agenda available at the table back there, along with some coffee I heard that Robin made earlier. And a full packet with all available materials is available on our website. Reviewing our full agenda, first we will consider our consent agenda. Actually, first we have a couple of proclamations tonight that we'll have, and then followed by that will be our consent agenda, where we have a total of 3 items. And after that, we, we welcome general public comment for addressing issues that are not on today's agenda, but otherwise related to county business. Given our limited time and the need to have an orderly and efficient meeting, we apply certain rules regarding public comments. We will do our best to enforce these rules consistently and without regard to the point of view expressed by the speaker. Each speaker will be limited to a total of 3 minutes of speaking time. However, we will accept public comment of any length in writing. Individual speakers may not donate unused time to other speakers. All comments must address topics within the jurisdiction of the County Commission. And we reserve the right to mute and remove any speaker whose comments are threatening, aggressively hostile, or belligerent. Campaigning for public office during the public comment period is not allowed. Please give your full name and residence for our meeting minutes, if comfortable doing so, and please address your comments directly to the commission. We will hear from people in person first, then we'll look to our Zoom meeting attendees. Please plan to use the raise your hand function if you wish to provide your public comment virtually. Please also know that comments received by the commission during our meetings do not necessarily represent the views of Douglas County government, but we value the input. We don't usually respond to general public comment on the spot, but if you leave your contact information with county staff, we will try and get specific questions answered later. After general public comment concludes, we will move on to our regular business agenda for tonight, which there's only 1 item on, and it's for informational purposes only. But if we were to have any action items, we'll hear from staff and have questions from the commission. And then after questions, we will open up the floor for public comment that's relevant to that item. Once public comment is concluded, it'll come back to the commission for any further discussion we might have this evening and action if there were action. And lastly, a recording of this meeting will be available on the county's YouTube page and website. And with that, our first proclamation this evening is going to be read by Commissioner Dorsey.
This proclamation declares the first Friday in June 5th, to be National Gun Violence Awareness Day in Douglas County, Kansas, to honor and remember all victims and survivors of gun violence, and to declare that we as a county must do more to end this public health crisis. Whereas every day 127 Americans are killed by gun violence, more than 260 Americans are shot and wounded. There's an average of over 19,000 gun homicides each year, and Americans are 26 more times likely to die by gun homicide than people in other high-income countries. And whereas Kansas has the 22nd highest rate of gun deaths in the United States, with 482 gun deaths every year, a rate of 16.5 deaths per 100,000 people. And whereas gun violence in Kansas costs the state $5.7 billion each year, $95.1 million of which is paid by taxpayers. And whereas Douglas County has been preparing to welcome a large number of visitors this summer for the FIFA World Cup 2026, including the men's Algerian national team, who will set up their training base camp at Rock Chalk Park. And whereas gun violence prevention is more important than ever as we witness an increase in firearm suicides, homicides, and shootings across the country and in our community. And whereas in June 2013, 15-year-old Hadia Pendleton was tragically shot and killed, and her classmates chose the color orange to honor her and raise awareness of gun violence across the United States. And whereas we will wear orange on June 5th, 2026, to raise awareness of gun violence and pay tribute to Hadia Pendleton and other victims and survivors of gun violence, as well as the loved ones of those affected. And whereas we renew our commitment to reduce gun violence and pledge to do all we can to keep firearms out of the hands of people who should not have access to them, and encourage responsible gun ownership to keep our families and communities safe. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Douglas County Commissioners declares Friday, June 5th, 2026, to be National Gun Violence Awareness Day. We encourage all citizens to support their local community efforts to prevent the tragic effects of gun violence and to honor and value human life. Adopted today, June 3rd.
Thank you, Commissioner Dorsey. I believe we have some community advocates that I invite to come up, and you're welcome to come up to this podium. Just make sure you unmute your microphone once you get up there and provide any additional information you'd like. And then we've got your fancy proclamation to take with you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Good evening. My name is David Carter, and I am a volunteer with the Kansas chapter of Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. I'm here with other volunteers from Douglas County to express solidarity with victims and survivors of gun suicides, homicides, and unintentional shootings. Every day in the United States, more than 120 people are killed by a gun. In Kansas, almost 70% of these are suicides. According to the Annals of Internal Medicine, the presence of a gun in the home triples the risk of death by suicide. Meanwhile, homicides cause more than 40% of gun deaths in America and almost 30% in Kansas. Unarmed people often get caught in the crossfire, like Hadia Pendleton, the 15-year-old marching band kid in Chicago, whose 2013 death inspired the Wear Orange movement. Even here in Lawrence, altercations that may have begun as routine arguments have escalated into homicides because somebody used a gun. Domestic violence also influences gun homicide. According to the American Journal of Public Health, a gun in the home increases the risk of murder by an intimate partner by 500%. In Kansas, as in the rest of the United States, guns are now the leading cause of death for children and teens. Each year, more than 2,600 American kids are killed by someone else. For children under 13, these deaths are usually connected to domestic violence or to the unsafe storage of firearms by adults in the home. The ripple effects of gun violence are broad. More than 200 people suffer debilitating gunshot injuries every day. The family and friends of those killed and injured become mourners and sometimes caregivers. And witnesses to shootings often relive their trauma for years. Our organization aims to improve community safety by supporting policies like background checks on every gun sold and red flag laws to keep guns away from people who are a threat to themselves or others. We also support programs like Be Smart, which educates gun-owning adults to keep their weapons locked and unloaded with ammunition stored separately. But our work begins by supporting victims and survivors. In observing National Gun Violence Awareness Day, by wearing orange on Friday, June 5th, we honor them and we dedicate our efforts to them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate your efforts. I've got this proclamation if you'd like to come grab it. And thank you so much for your work on public health and public safety. Here. All right, with that, we'll turn it over to Commissioner Kelly for our second proclamation of the evening.
Okay, this is for a moment of unity, July 4th, 2026. A proclamation to commemorate a uniting moment of the 250th anniversary of the birth of the United States of America. Whereas the governor approved House Bill 2712, Section 2B, allowing to execute commemorative events and celebrations relating to the semi-quincentennial of the United States on April 7th, 2022. And whereas the Kansas Senate Resolution 1724 resolved to commemorate and celebrate the 250th anniversary of the adoption of the Declaration of Independence of the United States of America and entered it February 4th, 2026. And whereas in 1976, at the last 5-decade anniversary of the birth of the United States of America, President Gerald Ford proclaimed, the Continental Congress, by resolution adopted July 2nd, 1776, declared that 13 American colonies were free and independent states. 2 days later, on the 4th of July, the Congress adopted a Declaration of Independence, which proclaimed to the world the birth of the United States of America. And in the 2.5 centuries that have passed, we have matured a nation and as a people. We have gained the wisdom that age and experience bring, yet we have kept the strength and idealism of youth. And the adoption of the Declaration of Independence be observed by the simultaneous ringing of bells throughout the United States on the afternoon of July 4th. And whereas in 1976, Governor Robert Bennett proclaimed to similarly observe by ringing bells for 2 minutes for the 200th anniversary of the birth of the United States of America. And whereas in 1926, Governor Benjamin Paul proclaimed to observe similarly by ringing bells. And whereas in 1876, the Centennial Bell in Philadelphia rang. And whereas in 1826, a bell in Philadelphia, possibly the Liberty Bell, rang 13 times for each of the original states. And whereas in 1776, bells across the 13 states rang as the Second Congress announced the Declaration of the Independence to the people. Whereas the Lecompton Historical Society, Clinton Lake Historical Society, Douglas County Historical Society, along with the Santa Fe Trail Historical Society of Douglas County and Eudora Area Historical Society are members of the Heritage Alliance of Douglas County. And whereas members of the Alliance purpose to bring together people interested in preserving and understanding the history of our community so that it will not be lost on our children. Now, therefore, it be resolved that the Board of Douglas County Commissioners do hereby proclaim that the 250th anniversary of the uniting moment of adoption of the Declaration of Independence be observed by the simultaneously ringing of bells throughout Douglas County at 1:50 p.m. Central Daylight Time on the afternoon of July 4th, 2026, our semi-quincentennial Independence Day, for a period of 2.5 minutes, signifying our 2.5 centuries of independence. I call upon civic, religious, and other community leaders to encourage public participation in this historic observance. I call upon Douglas County, here and abroad, including all, to join in this salute. As the bells ring in our 3rd century, as millions of free men and women pray, let every American resolve that this state under God will meet the future with the same courage and dedication America showed the world 2.5 centuries ago. And perpetuation of the joyous ringing of the Liberty Bell in Philadelphia, let us again proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all the inhabitants thereof. Adopted this 3rd day of June, 2026.
Thank you, Commissioner Kelly. I believe we have some community advocates and guests with us who might have a little bit more to say. If you'd like to come forward, it looks like the microphone is already unmuted for you. If you have any more you'd like to share. We appreciate it. It's a great photo opportunity.
Commissioners, thank you for this opportunity to speak to this proclamation. Steve Novak from Douglas County, Marin Mesa from Quinton Lake Historical, Waylon Zeisenice from the Eudora Area Historical, and Lecompton send their regards to this commission. I am John Moore, 1040 East 1901 Road, Eudora, member of the Santa Fe Trail Historical Society of Douglas County, member of the Eudora Area Historical Society, and Charles Robinson chapter of the Sons of the American Revolution. Both but most importantly, a citizen of Douglas County. I also welcome you to attend a Moment of Unity celebration July 4th at the Clearfield School, 2162 North 600 Road. It's on the Eudora Baldwin line, starting at 1 p.m. and climaxing with the National Bell Festival ringing from sea to shining sea at 1:50 p.m. The Santa Fe Trail Historical Society celebrates America's independence and our grateful hearts for the bell tower that the county kindly provided. In celebration of our 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, I offer cookies and water in the back for all commissioners and people and guests, and leftovers may be given to the rest of the county staff and employees. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here.
I'm Roger Boyd, 510 3rd Street in Baldwin City. I'm president of the Santa Fe Trail Historical Society. I appreciate the proclamation and also invite you to join us at Clearfield on July 4th.
Thank you. We've got a proclamation for you to take. Appreciate the acknowledgement of unity, and may we keep striving for more perfect union. Thank you. All right. Always a fun and extra festive meeting to get to have proclamations in the beginning and celebrate good work being done across our community. With that, commissioners, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Would anybody like to remove anything from the agenda for further questions? All right, seeing no takers from commissioners, is there anybody in the public who would like to remove anything from the consent agenda this evening for further dialogue? Okay, any virtual hands, Sarah, just to check? All right, we'll go ahead and bring that back, and I'm ready for a motion, commissioners.
Motion to approve consent agenda items 1, 2, and 3.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great. Moving right on to general public comment. Is there anybody here who would like to provide general public comment today about items that are not on today's commission? Come on, that are not on today's agenda. Excuse me. Come on up, John. Reminder for anybody who might be online, please use the raise your hand function in case you'd like to provide public comment.
Was the business meeting on the agenda? Do I get to comment?
Yes, you will get to the general public comment is before the business agenda. So if you'd like to make comments about anything that's not on tonight's agenda, now's the time.
Got an answer. We had the business meeting on the flexible housing.
The work session, I apologize. That's what you meant. The work session that we
Yeah,
just
no,
had. Yeah,
no.
this is a great opportunity for you to provide.
So I just wanted to say I applaud the collection of outcomes and metrics within the flexible housing pool. It was a good meeting. I applaud the focus on chronic homelessness, a challenged population of homeless. Understanding the journey of the high ratio of mental health and substance abuse reveals their challenges and informs the commission and the public what service work and what services are missing. Presenting the outcomes and treatment metrics with this population is critical. Thank you for having this business meeting today. I look forward to learning more as it evolves. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments, John. Is there anybody else here who would like to provide general public comment? All right, seeing none. Any virtual hands, Sarah? Okay, we'll close general public comment, move on to our one regular agenda item this evening, and looks like I'm turning it over to Bob Transky.
Good evening, commissioners. I think that's the first time I've ever done that without having to talk myself through it. Bob Tryansky, Director of Behavioral Health Projects for Douglas County. I had a slightly different plan for how to start So I'm editing on the fly because I wanted to share with you a video clip, which I shared with you in the agenda item report. In fact, we shared 5 video clips. And the reason I wanted to do that was because tonight's report and presentation is about introducing you to some of the folks that are doing peer support, recovery coaching, being a family support specialist, this whole realm of lived experience and integrating lived experience across our system of care. In 2017, when Douglas County started getting involved in trying to improve and thinking about how to improve our behavioral health system, how to improve our justice system as it relates to behavioral health, there were 5 half-time peer specialists working at Burt Nash, serving primarily folks with Medicaid in outpatient services. And one of the things that we were learning about crisis services is that if you want to be able to make progress with people who are system resistant, who have been system failed, who have had negative experiences, sometimes horrible experiences in the community in which they live that shatter trust, that create trauma, things that really work against people being able to get beyond the type of struggling that people encounter when they have a serious mental illness, when they have an addiction issue, when they have experienced generational trauma. When you can put people into your workforce, into your service delivery models, into the organizations in your community who are able to share lived experience in ways that engage, that build trust and rapport and help people to move forward, peer support and integration of lived experience really is the secret sauce of helping people to make progress. And so at that time, we didn't have a peer workforce. We had 5 part-time employees at the Community Mental Health Center. And we knew that we were going to need to have a workforce. Well, employing and deploying a workforce in this space is difficult. But when it doesn't exist, creating one is kind of a daunting adaptive challenge. One of the first things we did, the county funded a training, and we trained 20 individuals to get certified to be certified peer specialists in the eyes of the Kansas Aging and Disability Service Organization. We trained 20, 17 were certified, there were no jobs. So we continued to move forward in trying to figure out how to integrate folks with peer support certification into the types of settings where people in crisis show up. We started with the Lawrence Memorial Hospital emergency room. We had 6 peer fellows who signed up to be a part of an experimental project that was kind of a mashup between what an organization like Teach for America was doing in the educational workforce, which was taking folks who would make good teachers in communities that had needs and there was not a workforce available. They would allow them to come in through a training and professional development program to do 2 things. 1, gain work experience by actually being on the front lines in a classroom while they're continuing to complete their certifications and their advanced degrees, the master's degree that they needed for teaching. What we tried to do in Douglas County is to say, what if we took that same model and applied it to peer support? And that's where the Peer Fellows program was born. I want to talk to you a little bit tonight about the Peer Fellows project, the Peer Fellows program, how it's evolved, and where we are today with that. And then I also want to introduce you to 2 other pieces of the system of care as it relates to peer support and integrating lived experience. I want to introduce you to Alive, Inc., which is our consumer-run organization in Douglas County, CRO. And then I want to talk to you a little bit about some work that's being done to try to get the development of a clubhouse model for mental health off the ground and integrated into Douglas County. I'm going to start by introducing our guests because I have some guests and there'll be a point where I step back from the microphone and give you an opportunity to talk to the people who are doing the work. Simon did a really good job at that. Simon's my model for this session. But I want to introduce you. This is Holly LeClaire. Holly is the manager of integration of lived experience and outreach for Alive, Inc. Holly started with the Peer Fellows program as an employee of Family Promise. This is Trina Tinsley. Trina is the founder of the JAX Project and a member of the Homeless Response Team. This is Eugene Cowper. Eugene is a Family Promise peer specialist, but the official title, his title changed, and I'll let him. Next to him is Risa Williams. Risa is a community health worker at Heartland, who is also a certified peer specialist. And then next to Risa is Jeremy Bryan, and Jeremy is a recovery coach with Heartland RADAC. All of these, and they are also on the Alive board. Thank you, Risa. See why you want to talk to them sooner than me. But I just want to put this in the context of the community health plan. So, we've talked to you before about the various components about the behavioral health plank of the plan. It's an ambitious plan. It has a lot of moving parts. There is one focus area in that plan talking about integrating lived experience across the system of care. And doing this, building a peer workforce, creating consumer-run organizations, and providing psychosocial rehab models that are run by the members of the organization is challenging. One of the things that makes it challenging in the state of Kansas is there's a lack of integrated certification process. So some of the folks here are peer mentors, some of them are peer specialists, some of them are recovery coaches. There's a lot of terms and job descriptions that are used to describe peer support. There are varied job descriptions, expectations, and pay scales. When we started this program, peers were being paid about $12 an hour. The average pay for the folks that are involved with our partners now is between $17 and $20 an hour. So we've made some really significant progress on pay scales. There are management and supervision challenges. In a lot of organizations, there's not a lot of experience managing peers or running a peer program. And so there's a learning curve involved for management as well as for the peers that are working in a new environment. There is a lack of stable and sustainable funding sources. We've been able to make a lot of progress in Douglas County because Douglas County has been very invested in this development work. There's limited community understanding of the value and potential impact of peer support. I had a friend who was living with us from South Africa who was managing a number of Dairy Queens around the state of Kansas. And he said, when we were talking about starting this program, man, I wish I could have one of my employees be a peer specialist, because let me tell you who I employ at the Dairy Queens that I run. I employ people who have recently been released from incarceration. I'm employing people who this is their third or fourth job because they're struggling to pay their utility bill, make the rent, pay for childcare and arrange for childcare. And I have a lot of high school students who are experimenting with substances. If I could have somebody with peer support skills as part of my workforce, that would be incredibly valuable. And Eugene's going to talk a little bit about what we call stealth peer support, because the work that he's been doing has kind of embodied that. There are limited training opportunities. And so because of that, we've been real intentional about building robust, rigorous, and substantial training into the Peer Fellows program. And there are limited employment opportunities, but I'm happy to report, again, in 2017, 5 part-time people. Today, there are over 35 peers in the workforce in Douglas County. So we've had about a 600% increase. We are making progress. And the reason we're making progress is because of the collaboration, the partnerships, the willingness to take risks and do things like embed peers in the emergency department 7 or 8 years ago, when everyone said, that's not a good idea, I'm not sure that's going to work. I think the community has risen up to really embrace the work that's being done. There are 2 objectives in the Integrate Lived Experience portion of the plan. One is to continue to expand the workforce over the next 5 years by 50%. This gets a little bit harder as the workforce gets bigger. The numbers are bigger. So, we talked about aiming for 0, striving for 5. If we have a 10% improvement every year by the end of the plan, we'll have expanded the plan, and I'm happy to say today that we have 1,200%. But the other piece is by 2028, establishing a clubhouse model to support community members living with mental illness and co-occurring substance use disorders, and offer members a wide array of opportunities to achieve their full potential. People who live with a serious mental illness have a chronic health condition. That doesn't mean that they're disabled, that they're incapable of work, that they're not going to be able to have social relationships, but there has to be a place in a community for those things to build and to grow. And there's a model called the Clubhouse model. was talking with Commissioner Kelly. He said, every time you say clubhouse model, I'm wondering, tell me more. What does that mean? Because he thinks that we were having a conversation about this. So I'm going to try to clarify that this morning or this evening. And so what are we doing? Well, I told you a little bit about the Peer Fellows program. Peer Fellows come in to we have an organization like DECO or Heartland Radac or Family Promise, and they say, we would like to have peers in our workforce. We said, we would like to support that. The county provides a stipend, which is basically enough to pay a person half-time. And then the agency either meets us halfway to create a full-time job, or they might put more money and dollars in, or they might just employ somebody part-time to see if peer support works in their organization. But the peers enroll with the agency supervises them, the agency hires them as an employee. They gain 20 to 40 hours of work every week. They participate in a 3-hour seminar that happens on Wednesdays from 9 to noon. They support the work of Alive Inc. and things like the development of the clubhouse model, and there are additional certification and training opportunities. Some of the peers here are certified in smart recovery and other things. The seminar has a number of curriculum components. We focus on developing the peer support competencies and skills that have been certified by SAMHSA. There are deep dives on selected topics. So for example, today, Ken Vick from Avalon was working with our peers on de-escalation techniques, on conflict resolutions and strategies to deal with individuals who are difficult. That component has been taught in the past by Greg Pruitt from the Lawrence Police Department, Detective Greg Pruitt. He's taken sort of a law enforcement angle on that. The first Wednesday of each month, we do a deep dive on a bigger topic. We also have, and Holly coordinates in her role as the manager of outreach, a thing called Ask the Experts sessions. So that's where we have the medical director from Burt Nash to come in and talk about psychiatric medications and how to help build rapport so that people might accept treatment. We have members of the mobile response team come in, the police co-responder, people who have expertise and are doing the work that the peers can benefit from. We have voices of lived experience sessions where folks who have also been on a recovery journey and are on the other side of that journey and are now doing other things that sometimes are entrepreneurial or very interesting with their careers come in and share those perspectives. We do peer coaching circles once a month. We follow a model from the Kansas Leadership Center. And we also provide peers opportunities to go to Wichita or participate in Kansas leadership training opportunities. And we have a number of people in the community who also are pretty comfortable and skillful at teaching those things. Commissioner Kelly was in a couple months ago, for example, teaching KLC's immunity to change exercise. And then there are opportunities for outreach and resource navigation. I just want to give you the Peer Fellows by the numbers. So we have we've had 15 community partners since the program began. We currently have 9 active agency partners. There have been 46 participants since May of 2019 when this program launched. I did the math last week in preparing for this. 86% have completed a year or more of service and transitioned to permanent employment. So in our behavioral health workforce, there's a lot of challenge with turnover and churn. The agencies that have been working with us have figured out how to identify good, talented people, keep them in a role, and keep them moving in their own professional development. And I think there's a lot to be learned from what's happening with that. Participants gain between 750 and 2,000 hours of work experience in the year that they're with us. So that is very substantial and is great for moving on in a career. They receive at least 150 hours of education and professional development every year. And they're required to complete their certified peer specialist certification or the Kansas certified peer mentor training or the family specialist trainings that are available through KDAD. So they leave the program fully certified. They come into the program with their level 1 certification. And the majority of peer positions, peer fellows positions, are now full-time. These are the agencies that we have worked with in the 7 years that the program has been going. And like I said, 9 are currently active. So I'm going to pause there. I'm going to ask our peers to come up and open it for some questions about how has the Peer Fellows Program, whatever questions you have about the Peer
Thank you, Bob. Thank you all for being here and being willing to field questions. Commissioners, does anybody have a question top of mind that they want to, I'll say just lob to the crew and see who wants to catch it? Well, I think a question that I'm curious to hear, and I really appreciate that you all are here to speak to what the work has been like, and especially that it's representative of so many different organizations. I would love to hear from whoever wants to share. Multiple answers are great. What does collaboration look like in your sort of day-to-day, your routine? Like, what does collaborating outside of the organization that you're employed with look like? How significant of a part of your role is that in supporting people? And I mean, like collaborating with other community partners and other systems, each other probably and beyond.
Can't do what we do without collaborating with other service partners. Being at the table with these guys, as you see, we're all from different organizations. So, I mean, from my perspective, being on the homeless response team, I am dependent on every single person behind me and what they bring to the table as far as what service organization they work with. And it gives us a chance to collaborate with them. We can't do anything without collaborating with service partners. It's all one big wheel and each one of us are just a piece of it. So it's detrimental to the work that we're doing.
So speaking for my role at Alive Inc., so I've been in this position since August of 2024, and to watch it transition from where it was to where it is now, and having all the community partners, you know, not just agencies, but private businesses, just volunteers from the community who want to share their time and their talent with us for Wellness Wednesday, Recovery Wednesday, speaking for the Peer Fellows and doing presentations for them has been amazing. Every time I put out a call for somebody for some topic, there's tons of response. So it's been great.
I would just say, like, as a community health worker, my job title doesn't say peer, but having lived experience, I'm a peer. I use that in the work I do. I just want to start off by saying that. But yeah, like Trina said, when I don't know the answer to something, I can reach out to people, the peers I work with, and figure out the answer. So that's very, very instrumental in all the work we're doing.
answer? Everybody doesn't have to answer every question.
I'm going to toss you a bit of a softball here because I think it's important to understand for the clients who receive peer lived experience interaction, what's the benefit to them? Why is that important?
The benefit I would have to say is understanding. I am going to say and speak for myself. Until I got with the peer group, the peer circle, I looked at mental illness, and I looked at mental illness as a weakness, addiction as a choice. Even though I grew up around it, and didn't even recognize it. The reason I didn't recognize it because there was three elements that was used: either ignored, accepted, or laughed at. There was two elements missing, and the two elements that was missing was explanation, explaining it, and then understanding it. And until I got with the peer group, well, just let me say, imagine being in your 50s, thinking that addiction and is a choice, and thinking that mental illness is a weakness, and then being in your 50s and being a part of a group that doesn't tell you you're wrong, but shows you. So I would have to say that, and your question was the benefit, right? What?
Yeah, I mean, the people that you're serving,
Understanding.
why is that
The
important?
people that we are serving and I am serving, I can be understanding now and be a better benefit to the people, because I no longer think mental illness is a weakness or addiction is a choice. So the understanding is the benefit that I have. You have to have a lot of understanding to be a help to someone.
Jeremy, can you share the recovery coaches?
Yeah, so from a recovery coach perspective, 20 years ago, I was the guy on the street. I didn't have any resources and I didn't have any way to get resources. So having walked through that, now I come in, I've got a caseload of between 20 and 30 people at any given time. Probably 30% of those are homeless people. And if I start working with a new client that's unhoused, the first thing that we have to do is get identification documents. I can reach out to HRT to get help with that, or start that process. And then each one of these people that are on this list they're all companies that I touch base with at any given time. If somebody needs to get with, needs substance use help, I can reach out to DECA. If someone's in mental health crisis or they got something that they're going through, I can reach out to Bert Nash. And each one of these different companies is represented in our Peer Fellows program. So it gives us a lot more insight into what we're doing. And to be able to walk up to somebody who's in a position that they're in without judgment, see them where they're at, tell them, I've been there, I've walked through it, and I've gotten out of it. Here's how to do it. Here are the resources that you can reach out to. Let's help you do that yourself. So it empowers them. It puts somebody next to them that's been through it, and it gives them a sense of belonging, and usually it's the first one they've ever had since they've gotten into that position.
I got a question for Bob. You mentioned on one of the earlier slides, the county pays 50% of your salary. What hourly wage do we pay?
So we provide a stipend to the agency that's going to employ the individual. So we provide a base stipend of $15,000 for a part-time person, and then there are other ways that we work with an agency. For example, Heartland Radac, we support 2 full-time people through the programs we're doing. They support 1 full-time person. So each agency has a sort of like a slightly different funding braid, depending on how long they've been working with us, how their agency works, and what their pay scales are. But $15,000, the stipend that we start with, was figured when I said it was $12 an hour was what peers were being paid. This is what you could do to start to pay somebody $15 an hour. So it's a starting point. Does that answer the question?
You started to go into a little bit of detail about the client's journey. So could you go just a little bit more into detail about the client's journey? Because I heard you say it wasn't about telling them, but it was about, I think you said, showing them versus telling. So if you wouldn't mind, each of you in your own respective roles and organizations, talking just a little bit more about the client's journey, kind of where they start or how they enter your, I'm going to say, system, or how they first engage with you, and what that looks like for the engagement and the showing versus the telling, and how they then maybe that warm handoff, or how they then get to the next step with each organization, and what that means for each of you when you then get the opportunity to hand off to the next organization.
Suggest that Risa and Trina take cracks at this, given the way that they work.
So working at Heartland, I generally get my referrals from in-house through our providers. We do the PHQ-9, so we're looking at social determinants of health to see what areas the patient is needing support with. I also, working alongside my peers, will get calls a lot of times outside of work, like, hey, I got so-and-so, let's try to figure out where we can get them. But the long answer is, this is complex work. So not every situation is going to look like the next. I mean, there's a lot of just I don't even know how to explain it, just like trying to figure out what's going to work for that individual. It all looks different.
So I hold an aftercare role on the homeless response team. So that means I get to go into individuals' homes after they've been recently housed. And because of my work with the JAX project, most of these people I've had a relationship and rapport with for several years. So it's a pretty easy foot in the door. In regards to your question with how does lived experience help the client, and then how do we help them to the next level, right? So when people get into housing, there's a lot of trauma related to that. I have an individual right now that is dealing with some domestic violence, and that's part of my lived experience. And so when you can come to the table when you're serving someone from lived experience, you're not handing them a manual. You're not teaching them something that you've learned in school. You're coming from a personal place of understanding, and it gives that person an opportunity to feel like they're understood, that they're heard. You're not just giving them textbook answers. When appropriate, you can share a little bit of your own lived experience if they don't, if they haven't already had those conversations with you. So to be able to walk a journey with somebody when you've already walked down a similar path yourself is valuable. I mean, that's the best part about the work that we do as peers, is we get to come from a place of again, we've been there, we get it. We understand. We're not sitting in an office. We're meeting you where you're at. We're coming from a place of deep understanding. And then once that rapport and relationship is built even stronger, then they can trust us better to be able to pass them along to the next provider to say, hey, I know you don't know this person, but I know them and you can trust them. And here's what they can work with you on. And I'm still going to be there for you, because I get to follow people for a year into their journey and then longer if needed. So I get to do those warm handoffs, but I still get to be there present. And they may not have been able to trust that next provider, but that vicarious trust, because I'm telling them, look, you can trust them. And because they trust me, I can do that handoff. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
So this is the face and a context of what the Peer Fellows are doing. Holly is kind of the full-time manager of organizing the Peer Fellows seminar and the logistics for that. She also plays a role with Alive Inc. And the folks are on the board. I want to talk with you about some things that'll come to you through the budget process, finding a headquarters and home for Alive and a clubhouse model to be co-located and to coexist. A clubhouse model, and again, I put some things in your packets about standards of that, but what it is, it's an evidence-based, community-based recovery model that supports and empowers people living with mental illness by providing opportunities for meaningful work and social connection. It's a place to go every day to have opportunities for social interaction, to play a meaningful role in the work of the clubhouse. So clubhouses are organized around something called a work ordered day. There are units in the clubhouse model. There's a culinary unit, there's an administrative unit, there's an employment unit, there's a media unit. And those units are where members have the opportunity to try to develop their interests or their skills and do the work of running the clubhouse every day. So with Alive Inc., the consumer-run organization, CRO, and the clubhouse, we would have that full complement of services and supports in that post-crisis response, maintaining community tenure, helping to develop employment and employment opportunities. Clubhouses, the accreditation model has supportive employment opportunities where staff will actually go to work with a clubhouse member to ensure that the work gets done, that the hire is good, that if it doesn't work out, the staff will actually show up while they're finding somebody else to do the work. So it's a real community partnership to encourage businesses and other agencies in the community to invest in the recovery of folks who have a chronic challenge. And I'm going to stop there because I promised Sarah I would not go on too long, but we'll have any other questions, certainly.
I have a question, Bob, about the clubhouse. Something I really appreciate about well, about this particular conversation that we're having, the clubhouse model, and my minimal understanding of it over the years, and just peers in general, is that we're not just talking about behavioral health services, we are talking about behavioral health workforce. And care workforce in our communities is such a critical issue that is really hard to pinpoint any sort of state or national conversations around what are we doing to be able to support building up a workforce that does community care in a variety of roles, many of which are represented amongst, the 5 of you that are here. So I really appreciate that thread, and I want to highlight it. And I'm curious, with the building up of the clubhouse model for here, like what, if any, engagement with the business community, which is, I'm going to be honest, not a phrase I love, but economic development partners like the chamber, like CORE, other groups in the community that are working with on entrepreneurial issues and or traditional workforce issues. Like what, if any, have been some of those conversations, or what might you be planning for or thinking about in terms of, Bob, you just highlighted like examples of how basically employment placement and supportive employment placement is a significant part of this goal. Are there opportunities or conversations happening about how businesses can invest sort of on the front end, or who are engaged early on before there's necessarily jobs to fill with people who are at the clubhouse? Does that long-winded question make sense to you, Bob?
It does. It's not long-winded. I think what you're trying to say is what are we doing to build community champions for a project such as this? And the initial conversations and outreach are happening with individuals talking to other people in the community about what Alive is doing and what they need to be able to move forward, and then what this clubhouse model might be able to bring to the table. I'll give you an example. A real estate developer was talking with Alive about trying to find some office space because they have some funding from KDADS to be able to invest in renting space. This person had a place that they were thinking of flipping as an Airbnb. We went over, and all of a sudden there was a lot of talk about, this would actually be a great location for a co-located CRO headquarters and the clubhouse model. And what I observed in that conversation after we did 2 or 3 tours is every time we went back to that space, there were a couple of more community partners who were talking about how this space could maybe meet that goal, or it might, as it turned out, it wasn't the right space and not the right time. This is in its infancy. There's a lot of work to be done. But your question is, I think we're close to having a critical mass of folks who would say, we will be the advisory board for this. And I think we have a partnership with Breakthrough Episcopal Services in Wichita, because KDADS requires any new clubhouses to kind of launch under the auspice of an existing clubhouse model. Breakthrough Episcopal Services, they are the convener of the Kansas Clubhouse Coalition. So there's 7 clubhouses in Kansas. This would be the 8th. We're not leveraging dollars that are available through the lottery fund to do this type of work in Douglas County, and we need to sort of get to the point where we've got a team that's ready to build and launch. And that's where I was trying to, if we can figure out a solution and a commitment to say we've got a place to build this, then I think that the rest will come from the state, as it has in the other 7 clubhouses.
Well, where is the closest clubhouse to Lawrence?
Lotus House in Topeka. And we actually have members here that are going there to actually participate in the work order day and to sort of get up to speed with what the clubhouse model is, what it looks like as they try to shape and launch the clubhouse model.
But you think your sponsor would be the one in Wichita?
What's that?
You think your sponsor to open would be the one in Wichita, not the one in Topeka?
Well, the partnership we have a peer fellow who is working under the supervision of Breakthrough Episcopal Services to actually help build and get the training that they need to be able to pursue the accreditation process for a clubhouse. So that partnership kind of grew from a conference that we went to where Andy Holtberg from Breakthrough said, we think we could help you pilot. We think we could help you incubate this in Lawrence.
The load, I had the same look on my face about what it is and what it is that they actually do when they started talking about the clubhouse. The best thing that I could suggest for you is to book a 15-minute sort of tour at Lotus House in Topeka. It is truly a thing to behold. Watching the way that they collaborate and the way that it's person-led, and it completely got me on board to the idea of Clubhouse. And I mean, I'm willing to do whatever I can to help it happen here, because it's needed here for sure.
Are all the models similar across the state of Kansas?
I don't know the answer to that because I haven't visited all of them, but what I do know is they're all accredited, and there is these standards, these international standards for clubhouses, and you have to meet the requirements of the standards. That's also attached in your AIR in order to be certified to be a clubhouse. You don't have to do all of the pieces of the clubhouse. You can start with 3 units. You can meet but you need to get to a point where you're meeting every day. You're providing kind of a full day where people can go every day.
And do you have to be accredited within a certain period?
Yeah, so KDADS requires that you are accredited and running a program that serves an average of 20 people a day within a year after receiving the first block of funding.
And are all of the Kansas Clubhouse models accredited and receiving funding by KDADS?
I believe the answer is yes.
Okay, thank you.
And the split is the lottery fund, 75% of the lottery fund is what is funding crisis centers in the state of Kansas. 25% of the lottery fund allocation is supposed to go to clubhouses.
And does the lottery fund require a match?
No.
Okay.
No requirement, but the clubhouses that work well leverage a lot of resources in the community.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioners, other questions? Okay, seeing no other questions, thank you all so much for being here. This is a regular business item, informational purposes only, and no action to be taken, but we welcome public comment on all available items. And excuse me, so this is a time for anybody who's here in person that might want to provide public comment. Please come forward. It looks like the microphone is already unmuted, so you're ready to go. Come on up. And anybody who might be online, please use the raise your hand function for staff.
Still on? Okay. All right. Eric Hyde, 66046. I want to approach this differently this time. I support all this mental health stuff. But I just want to make clear that I particularly have federal rights that differentiate between mental and neurological. And I'm often overlooked in this whole campaign to help mental illness. And it really upsets me, actually, because I have a neurological condition, and you can't really call it mental illness. It's not fair. And I actually get abused and mistreated by people who think I'm mentally ill. It even happened in this book, The Traumatized Brain. It was published in 2015. So I give her that, the author. But let me just read this real quick. I read this at City Commission last night. It's on page 4. All right. Or it was on, sorry, excuse me. All right. So research in science and medicine is going on all the time, and in the future we will know more about how the brain does what it does, and we will be able to help those who suffer from brain injuries even more than we can today. We already understand a great deal. We understand that neuropsychiatric symptoms are part of brain injury. We accept the psychiatric symptoms after brain injury can cause significant problems, and we know that these symptoms can indeed be managed. The more we know, the more hope there is for patients and their families and friends. Many people with TBI, traumatic brain injury, are suffering in silence because they are misunderstood. And I'm that guy. I'm highly misunderstood. I've had 7 brain injuries. I can't remember these words, so I wrote them down. I believe I'm suffering from chronic post-concussion syndrome, cumulative brain injury damage, and chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE. You can't diagnose that until someone dies, which is, I think, pretty stupid. But I think I have it. And angry outbursts, all that stuff. I get headaches now. My condition is worsening. I kind of feel like I'm losing grip with reality a little bit, but I'm still very smart. Anyway, I just wanted to say that, yeah, you could do all this mental stuff and help these people because people need it. But just look out a little bit more for people with disabilities and people like me with brain injury. And there's also a company I want to mention is Minds Matter LLC. I know they can help out a great deal. I don't know why they're not part of that slideshow. But anyway, yeah, this is, even the chief operating officer of Bert Nash apologized to me for the things they did to me. Okay, I'll stop now. Thank you.
That's your time. Thank you so much, Eric. Appreciate your comments. Is there anybody else here who would like to provide public comment on this agenda item? Okay, we have any virtual hands, Sarah? All right, we'll go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to the commission for any additional comments or discussion. I'll just make the comment that I deeply appreciate peer work. I think that it's foundational to all the different systems of care, and I think that there's just no amount of education and technical training can match what somebody's lived experience was. And something that struck me about what was shared earlier by you, Eugene, and talking about what you think that peers do for people is understanding. And I think that's 100% true. It's fundamental. And I think part of that understanding that you really highlighted is that you understand what it looks like to have a completely different narrative and framework of it for 5 decades of your life. You can speak to having understood it differently and thought about it differently. And I think that was a really astute point to make. And I just wanted to highlight it again because it is, our brains are very elastic, and depending on what traumas we experience and what experiences we have, especially as a young person, while it's still developing, and the things that impact that, there's a lot of training and conditioning into things that are detrimental to our health. And so there's a lot of retraining of our brains and reconditioning that has to be done. And I think that's lifetime work, and it deserves people to have somebody to walk alongside them, not leading them, not bringing them down a specific trail that they think is best for that person, but just saying that they'll walk alongside somebody for however long it takes for them to rewire their brain, because that's the work that you all are doing. And I deeply respect it. And thank you so much. I'm super excited about the potential of a clubhouse model coming here. So I appreciate that we're in the infancy stages, but I really welcome any feedback and ideas along the way in the peer group about how it is that we as commissioners and us as an organization can support bringing that here and advocating for it in a meaningful way, and building those champions early on that are going to help support it and carry it. Thank you all.
Just a ton of appreciation for the work you do. Many of you I've trained and really enjoyed our time together. It's so critical to think of it as workforce training, right? You have a special set of skills that others don't have. And we have to build those skills so that you can engage even at a higher level and some of the most challenging situations. I love the idea of going and visiting Lotus Center in Topeka. I'll talk to Bob. I'd love to go with you all to hear, how you're reacting to it. And I appreciate Bob's leadership in this space. I remember when he brought us our first set of peers and was trying to explain why this was important. And as as someone who has family members who have had some of the traumas that you had, knowing that those peers are in place, knowing that some of you have talked to my family members in places, I can tell you how incredibly valuable it is. And that sometimes the people who don't understand are not helpful at all, right? And that can be really, you can re-traumatize a person and drive them away from the support that they need. So very, very grateful for the work you do. And thank you for coming and sharing your stories with us tonight.
All right, commissioners, any other comments?
I was just going to say that I agree if there's an opportunity for us to take a tour with you all to Topeka. I would also think that that'd be a great, valuable opportunity for us to do that together.
Thank you all again. Okay, commissioners, that brings us to the end of our regular business agenda for the evening. And we'll move right on to appointments, which I don't believe we have any queued up for. I'm getting no alternative answers. So I'll move us past appointments and on to Commissioner and Administrator Miscellaneous. And we'll start with Sarah's memo.
Thanks, commissioners. Just some updated dates on the weekly memo. And we do have a work session at 4 o'clock next Wednesday. That's all I've got for you.
Thanks, Sarah. Commissioners, anything for the good of the order?
I want to call our attention to the letter I think we all got from Steve Cadu requesting a joint letter between the county and the city to Senator Murkowski to support Haskell's efforts to get a plan going for accreditation so they don't lose it in December of this year. So I'd like concurrence from everybody that we would support writing and signing such a letter.
I appreciate you bringing that up, Commissioner Dorsey. I am have intended to. I haven't had any conversations yet, but I'm working on trying to have some follow-up because I think that we need to make a point to talk with folks who are at Haskell. And I know it's a tricky space given their limitations as federal employees, but I want to make sure that we are talking to multiple voices because there are multiple perspectives about this issue. And while I think that there's some significant validity to the fact that in an interlocal, maybe collaborative letter of support is helpful and a good idea, what that letter of support would say and what it would be requesting is, I think, there's a little bit more to unpack there and some more perspectives to get. And so I'm interested in having a few more follow-up conversations to understand what that could or might look like. But I'd be certainly interested in continuing that conversation with you, Commissioner Dorsey, and maybe thinking about what it would look like to draft something to bring back to the commission for consideration in the future, if you're open to that.
Sure.
Other thoughts from other commissioners?
I was just going to say that I absolutely agree and concur that it's something that we do need to move forward with, but I'm also open to further discovery to ensure that we are capturing everything that we need to capture in all sides and perspectives to ensure that we craft the right perspective that this commission agrees with.
Yeah, I think I heard Commissioner Reed say we'd have two commissioners sort of working together on that and then bringing back to us. And it's, I think Commissioner Dorsey, Commissioner Reed, you've worked on those spaces quite a bit. And I think that would be a great approach to take. Since it would be something we would have to all agree on by vote, I think we want to be careful not to get too many people into it and violate open meetings. So I think, is that what you're suggesting, Commissioner Anderson? I think that'd be great.
Great. Thanks for bringing it up. We'll have some follow-up. Anything else, commissioners?
Do we need to do a quick roll check for DECA tomorrow? Have we noticed it already?
We have noticed it already. I assume I'll have more than 3 commissioners there.
I'll be there.
I think I'll have it, yeah.
I think we already have the Farm Bureau dinner noticed also.
Yep, you have that noticed.
Anything else? All right. Don't forget Pride's this weekend.
Hey.
Happy Pride. All right. We are adjourned.